Hello and welcome to episode 40 of the Green Arrow, an FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub as we look ahead to Gameweek 12 and beyond. My name is Fergie and a good evening to my co-host Adam Hopcroft. Adam, what colour was your arrow in Gameweek 11?
Do you know what? It was a convincing 300k green arrow. So,
Wow.
yeah, delighted with the game week just gone.
A couple of green arrows then on the trot now. Did you have 80 odd was it in your team? 80 odd
Yeah, I got
points?
85.
Wow.
So overall, fairly happy. How about yourself? How did you get on?
I did okay. I didn't have a keeper, so I had Martinez in goals. I played Foden, and he didn't get on, so I managed to get Credle off the bench. But no, I did okay. I had a return from Reece James, clean sheet from Robertson, captains De Bruyne. Obviously, those returns off Bruno, Son, Bamford, and DCL. So 76 above average with 10 men and saving a transfer. Really happy. So up to about 439,000 now, which I'm pleased with. The big omission from my team is I don't have Salah, and as we've just seen, wipe all the content because of what's just happened. But for those who don't know, Mohamed Salah just played 90 minutes away to Midtjylland in a dead rubber game, which throws up all sorts of questions of what's going to happen on the weekend.
Do you know what? I genuinely don't know how to feel about it. So we're in different situations. You're pretty happy because you weren't planning to get Salah. I own Salah. I actually bought him in last weekend. So last week, my logic was I made one transfer. I did Rashford out and bought Salah in purely because I thought I could have bought Bruno. He was the other option. But I thought I almost want to look at my team for game week 12, think actually I'm already set up, I can save a transfer, and obviously Salah would be the biggest captain. I don't know how I feel about it now. I mean, it was the first time I owned Salah this season, and I got in trouble from the wife because I was watching it on Amazon as she was putting the kids to bed. And when he scored, I got a bit excited, so I got in trouble from the wife. But that's what Salah does, particularly with the lower ownership. It was great. I can see what all the fuss is about having not owned him this season.
I think it must be very, very comforting just kind of having him there. I can really understand that. But we're having loads of questions in the chat. FPL tips. Hi there, Harry. Ofek, Ron, FPL, Geordie, and a few others as well. Will Salah play? So, Adam, I want the correct answer here as well. We'll come back next week and I want the correct answer. Do you think Salah will play?
Yeah, I do. So this is a really tough one because I think the situation that I'm in, having bought him in, I haven't really got a dilemma. Because he's in my team, I'm obviously not going to sell him. I think I'm going to captain him and stick with that, which most people will do. But I do think it is a little bit more of a dilemma for those that don't have Salah or who were planning to bring him in. My take on it, and I've posted in the chat, I'm really keen to see Klopp's post match press conference comments. So without seeing them, I'm just going on what I think. But I think sometimes we make too much about players being rested, or it's their turn for a rest. They're supreme athletes. They used to play in 3 times in a week, particularly the Champions League players when they play. So I don't think it's as big an issue as we're making out. The other thing as well is he could have done it deliberately to try and get his sharpness and fitness up to back up to the top levels, given that he had was it 10 or 11 days without training, and they probably wouldn't have been. I didn't watch the game, but given who they were playing against, they could there was very little risk in terms of it being high intensity, etc. He could have played at his own pace. So I think it would, and Liverpool, I've read the Athletic articles, they've got a very good sports science team. They talk about looking at players when they're in the red zone and when they need a rest. Yeah. So it's done more based on the player's capability than rather, he's had his turn, now it's this turn. I would be very surprised if Salah is rested the weekend, because how competitive the league is this season. Liverpool have got enough players out. You do not rest your top goal scorer, where he's not going to he's not going to need a rest, in my opinion. I think this possibly comes off early. That is a possibility. But I mean, what do you reckon? You smug non-Salah owner.
I know. I am a non.
Sure, your dreams come true, isn't it?
Do you know what? When it was announced this evening, he was in the team. I couldn't help laughing to myself. All the meltdown that was going on all around me, and the fact he played 90. I'm really struggling to see why he played 90, because they have Fulham obviously on the Sunday evening. They have that top of the table clash against Spurs, which is going to be a very, very hard game for Liverpool. But then they got the early kickoff on the Saturday, so I know they have a week off after that. But that is 3 days in essence. That's 3 games in 6.5 days, which means a lot of football. I do think he'll start them all, but I do think if they score a couple against Fulham, he'd be pulled early, ready for that Spurs game after 65 or 70 minutes. So I do think that it's probably safe to put it on Salah. If they score 1 or 2, he'll likely be involved. If he got a goal or 2, I think the captainers would be happy with that. I think if you own him and you didn't put the captaincy on him and he did bang, I think you'd be absolutely distraught, especially as there's no real standout alternative. I think maybe the best, there is obviously Son and De Bruyne, and we'll touch all this in a bit. But if you own him, I'd probably go for it.
Do you know? I think the only person who's happier than you that Salah and the likes of Fabinho started what's the BT Sports interviewer after the game? Is it Des Kelly after the game? He must be. This is with the interview Klopp last time, and he went in on him about he was trying to blame the interviewer for the kickoff times and all of that. So I think he's writing his questions now, and he's like, I bet he can't wait, because I'm thinking more for the 12:30 game against Crystal Palace, because that'll be on BT Sport, won't it? So I think he'll be pretty happy with it. But yeah, it has sort of thrown a bit of a spanner in the works, because we spent ages preparing for the pod, not expecting Klopp to do that. No. And I'm like, okay, it does raise a few questions now. So
it does. Okay, so evening all. Thank you so much for all the chat. We'll say hello now to all the guys in it. As we are live, please feel free to join in. Anyone at any time. We really, really value everyone's comments and questions. Let us know your thoughts on the topics, the relevant sections, and feel free to ask any questions. We will answer as many as we can. Good evening all. Srinjoy, Jody, Ryan, Post to Points, Orimas, Ofek Ron, Bert, Owen Johnson has put up a really good idea for a mug giveaway, and I like that. Free mug for correctly guessing what time Salah will be subbed on or off on Sunday. So we will run that this week. So we will run that as our competition for this week. You have to guess the minute that Salah will either be subbed on or subbed off, depending on what goes on. Obviously, if there's multiple people have the same entry, we'll pick a winner at random. But really good idea there. Owen, Mark, Byrne, Andre, Liam Dorian says, evening guys. So that is the Sky Fantasy Champion. Good evening, Liam. Hornet, and welcome to everyone. For any new watchers and listeners, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and set the alert so you don't miss our live streams, which are 8 p.m. every Wednesday right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. So tonight we asked the question, all this pre-prepared content, is Salah essential? So we prepared all this without the game earlier. But we ask, is Salah essential? And if so, which of the premiums we can't have to accommodate him? We can't have them all. Or if we do, we will not have the rest of the team, right? So I don't think having them all is really an option. And also what this does to our defences and benches as well. And what is really good is Adam and I, we have very different views on lots of things. I think Salah is one, and the kind of makeup of our team and structure is also another, which will come to light this evening, I think, and we'll try and give our arguments for why or not to have Salah, what it'll do to our team. We'll look at the best captaincy options for game week 12. We'll reveal our teams. I'm looking at a very risky captaincy option this week. We'll see what everyone thinks when we get to that section. We will give the competition results from game week 11 and give away another prize this week. And finally, have a look at the top of our podcast, Mini League. So for our YouTube viewers, we now have a graphic of Fantasy Football Hub's fixture ticker, which shows Liverpool sitting proudly at the top for the next 6 games away to Fulham, home to Tottenham, away to Palace, as we mentioned. Game week 15, home to West Brom. Doesn't get any better than that. Then away to Newcastle, another lovely game. And then they're away to Southampton, Leeds, Newcastle, just behind them. And down the bottom, in the bottom four, we've got Man United, West Brom, Everton and Chelsea have got the worst attacking fixtures for the next 6 games. So, Adam, is Salah essential?
No. That's next question.
Next question.
He's I don't think any player's essential, and I think there's players that are more important than Salah at the moment as well. I think he's a very, very, very good option, and we'll talk through some of the stats in a minute, and when we show some of the tables that we've looked at. But I think he's a great option. He's Liverpool's talisman. He's on penalties, but there is some risk to him. Obviously, we expect over the Christmas period, like a lot of other players, who will miss minutes. I think the likes of, he will share goals with the likes of Mane, and I was going to say Firmino, maybe not as much, and Jota, but yeah. I just think personally, I don't think he's essential, because I think there are a lot of other, so you've got Kane, Son, Fernandez, De Bruyne, so you've got other options. So I don't think he's essential. I think if you're going to ask, would I have him? Yeah, absolutely. And I do have him. So I think in an ideal world, if you're wild carding, or if you're looking at the perfect team, or if you've got a route to him, I think I would look to have him in. But he's not essential. And I think anybody that's looking to rip up their team, unless you're planning on captaining him for, a number of game weeks, I wouldn't be taking a -8 to get him in. Or wouldn't be doing that. That's my view personally. I know Salah. He's obviously one of the most popular FPL players, and when you ever question him, I'm not even looking at the comments, I'm sure. But you know what? I have Salah. I'm a happy owner, and I'm really glad I bought him last week, because I don't know if I'd buy him this week if I was in this situation. I said off air, I'd be tempted to go for Mane. And I think I don't think many people will do, but I'd be very, very tempted, because he's going to start versus Fulham, and he's equally as capable as Salah. So that would be my take. And I actually think Liverpool are a worse. I think they're a worse team without Salah or Mane, but I think Mane is more important to Liverpool than Salah, in terms of, not from an FPL perspective, but in terms of an actual performance perspective, because I think he dictates so much in terms of their pressing and things. So I think he's not essential. He's a brilliant option. He's a brilliant captaincy option over a number of the, probably the next 5 or 6 game weeks. He rotates quite nicely with De Bruyne. But there are plenty. The good thing this year is that there are loads of great options in FPL, loads of great premium options. So I don't think, I don't know whether you were expecting me to say was essential, but
no,
because I know you sort of you probably share that view, but probably even more so, don't you?
Well, I haven't owned Salah all season, because I said very controversially before the season started, and since actually, that I think Salah is overpriced, because I tend to look at the view that a captain is only, it's a 12th of your team every week, in terms of getting those extra points. So a 12th of your team score, what's that? I don't know, 8%. I think having 12 million plus on of your budget on one player who is a fantastic player, he's going to score a lot of points, right? But I personally would rather have 11 strong players on the pitch, all with good chances of scoring points, and decent reserves as well, because as we know, right? So, we'll look at your team in a bit. I know you've got wild card in hand, but I have seen some teams that have got, tried to put in all the premiums in, and their defenses and their benches are pretty woeful, right? And okay, maybe Salah won't get rotated himself, but a lot of teams will rotate. A lot of teams will get injuries, and I know you can't expect those, right? But we've all used our benches, I would guess, over the last few weeks as well. And currently, my bench is very, very, strong. My number 12 and 13 a very strong. My number 14 isn't. I've got Mitchell. I may look to upgrade Mitchell, in the coming week or two.
Yeah, you got Neil Foden in your team, haven't you?
Well,
As well,
I might be fixing that this week.
Yeah.
But I do think getting Salah in this week, if I had an easy route to Salah and I wasn't taking out a player such as Bruno or De Bruyne or Heung-min, all these wonderful, wonderful players. We'll look at the stats in a bit. If I didn't have to take any of those players out, I would do it. But any of those players are very capable of outscoring Salah this week. And if you go hopping about using your one transfer every week on trying to hop onto the next big premium player, and I know, there are a lot of very, very good FPL players who actually advocate that, and best of luck, to them with that. But I think this season is very, very different. I set out at the start of the season my kind of strategy of getting my core team together, fixing around the edges, getting a really strong team and putting out the fires. And so far, okay, my rank's okay, right? It's, what was it, 439 odd K. I'm not like pulling up trees, right? But there'll be a lot of people who captain Salah in game week 1 who I'm ahead of, and I didn't have him. I haven't caught any of his hauls at all. So I do think there's definitely an argument, for not having Salah, particularly around if the rest of your team looks really, really good.
Yeah. I think I've just seen some of the comments in the chat. I shouldn't have bothered because
no, go on.
I knew what it would be like. And I think there's a few people question, have I seen Mane stats? Yeah, I'm very aware of the stats. I believe that Mane is actually outperforming Salah in non-pen XG, which, yes, there are penalties. Of course, they are a factor. And that's why, I've succumbed to bringing Salah in. But I do think Mane is a great option. And I don't, he hasn't scored in a while, and that makes me think at some point it's going to happen for him. Because I actually thought he played really well against Wolves. Some of the bits of skill that he did were just absolutely brilliant. So as a player, I do really like Mane. Just to be clear though, I have Salah on my team, and I think it was a question: am I captaining him? Yeah, absolutely. And there'll be nobody more delighted than me if Salah gets a hat trick against Fulham. So, yeah, I am in Team Salah at the moment. I think having owned Mane at the start of the season, one of the big factors which I underestimated was penalties. And I think a lot of people probably underestimated how many penalties would be given. But I think from a safety point of view, I'm really glad that I brought him in last week, because I think, like I said, if I was in this position this week, knowing how I work, I would feel there's an element of risk bringing in Salah, and I think, there's an opportunity with Mane. Yeah. Why don't I go for Mane? And also as well, because I've got a wild card in game week 15, 16, so I'm not tied in for that long. So yeah, hopefully that addresses your questions. I do think Salah's great, but I don't think he's essential.
We'll touch on stats in a bit, because I do use stats, and they're a very big part of how I build my team and how I play the game. But stats are not everything there, and I'm a firm believer that. Look at Spurs and Arsenal on the weekend. If you went by stats, Arsenal would have won 3 or 4-0, but the game isn't won on stats. It's just one factor, and we'll touch on this in a bit. Just to finish off, I suppose, I think we both agreed maybe that Salah isn't essential. I'm not overly bothered about the Fulham game this weekend, right? Obviously, he could go and score a couple of goals, right? It's that West Brom game for me is the one, home to West Brom game week 15. I keep having flashbacks of when did he pop in a 29-pointer against, was it 29 points or whatever it was, against Norwich a few years ago. That was just like unbelievable, and that West Brom defence are probably as bad at Norwich, and that will be at Anfield as well. This one's away, and like I said, I don't expect him to get 90 against Fulham either. It's that West Brom one, so that's the one I'm concerned about in terms of moving forward. That's the one I think that looking at the other captaincies on that day, again, I don't think there's any massive real standout. You got
Bruno's away to Leicester,
yeah,
and I think KDB has got a decent fixture. I think he's at home to. I'm pretty sure City are at home that week. that weekend.
But it's
Maybe
not
Newcastle. I think it's to Newcastle actually. So they've got a decent fixture anyway.
Oh, okay, we'll have a look at that one then. 15. Oh, yeah, maybe actually it's 14 where there's not many not many amazing fixtures where Liverpool away to Palace. But anyway, it's that game week 15 one for me is the scary one, I think, because he could go on a rampage in that game, and he will have had a week's rest then as well. But we'll touch on that now. So in terms of, I think we've agreed that Salah is not essential, or you and I have agreed, Adam. For those who think,
I think the one thing that I would say is the general consensus, and I think most people will look to move heaven and earth to bring Salah in this week, and I can definitely understand the logic. He's a great captaincy rotation with De Bruyne, and I think a lot of people will do it, and I think from a safety blanket point of view,
yeah.
I'm sure that owning Salah is going to be a lot more comfortable than not owning Salah this weekend.
Yes, but I don't play the game like that. I find that boring. If
I don't at all either, and hence why I haven't owned Salah for this long. But I think we could try to cater for all audiences, and people. I'm thinking of the enjoyment of FPL. There are going to be some people that are going to be watching the Liverpool game from behind a sofa. And I don't want to encourage that. So I'm trying to cater for everybody.
I won't, because I've got Jota, and he's going to outscore Salah on Sunday. Sorry,
it's possible. Stranger things have happened.
Well, exactly. I've just been corrected in the chat. You're absolutely right, Anthony G. It was Watford that he got his wherever it was 29 points, and it wasn't Norwich. I was thinking of when Antonio scored against Norwich last week. So we've got some stats up now on screen, and we have, and it shows the main protagonists that will stop you getting Salah in your team if you have 3 or even 4 of these in Bruno Fernandez, Harry Kane, Heung-min Son and Kevin De Bruyne. And we've got their stats against Salah's from game week 25 to game week 38 last season. We've got their stats from this season so far, and we also show them combined, which is down the bottom. Adam,
we should add the relevance of game week 25 from last season. It's when Bruno joined United. Really, so what we wanted to do for this is we appreciate that there's been differences, changes to the teams, changes to the season, etc. But we wanted to try and look at data over a longer period of time, and we thought, well, we'll look at the point that Bruno entered the Premier League. And I think I find this data quite interesting because it shows the consistency of the 5 players that we're talking about. And I think it is. I think having 5 in your team is pretty much impossible if you can have a balanced team. I think having 4 of them is possible, but you might have to make sacrifices elsewhere. And I'd probably recommend having at least 3. So that's my take on it at the moment. Are there any that really stood out to you, or any stats that stood out there?
Yeah, so I think the stats that stand out there to me is Bruno has scored 197 points, which is the highest. So since he joined the Premier League, he scored the most FPL points. He scored 26 more points than Salah. Another really interesting one is Heung-min Son has only got 3 points less than Salah as well, and De Bruyne's are quite low. Obviously he's had a slow start to this season. He's starting to pick up now. Kane also didn't do that well at the back end of last year. But expected points against points for me. So if we look at Salah, so his expected points in this period was 172.6. He's actually scored 171. So it's pretty much bang on, which is fair enough. Bruno is overperforming his XG by 40.
Just to interject there quickly, the expected points is it's in for anyone that's not a member of Fantasy Football Hub. We use Opta data, but the expected points is it's been made. I think it's an actual algorithm which has been self-made, and is a really, really good indicator, I think, of future points. And it's I think the fact that Salah's is pretty much bang on is quite interesting.
But the fact that Bruno is 40 points over says to me that he is very much a premium option. Not only has he scored the most points, he's got, by far the biggest variance in terms of expected points against points, because he's multifaceted in the way he scores points. No more so than that goal after full time against Brighton, for example. Son's another one. So his expected points was 132.6. His actual points 168. So over 30 as well. Then that and that's due to his elite finishing. I want to be clear when I say overperforming, that to me doesn't mean it's unsustainable. In a lot of these cases, Son's an example, Bruno's example. I think they are sustainable because I think they are elite players who only need a couple of chances to score a goal.
Absolutely.
Whereas Salah is different, and this is another reason why I'm not. Don't get me wrong, Salah's a wonderful footballer. He's a wonderful FPL option, but he is wasteful as well, right? And that shows in his bonus. If you look at Son and Bruno, De Bruyne, and a lot of time with Kane as well, who's also overperforming his expected points, then they are elite finishers, which shows in their points, but also shows in the bonus. And Salah has had a couple of times. How many times has Salah scored and kind of only walks away with them, with a kind of minimum sort of points? Whereas I spoke to you last week, the week before, when we were talking about kind of Son and Kane. And if Son scores, which he generally does, well, not every game, but he generally walks away with a 10 or 11 sort of pointer, whereas Salah, when he scores, generally walks away with around about an 8-pointer. So this is why, again, I think there are better options, just because of that as well. And Bruno's the same, right? So if Bruno, De Bruyne or Son, when they get returns, they generally get bonus because they're very tight in the way they play. They don't give up many chances, whereas Salah, he has improved from last season, right? He scored some really, really good goals. Last year, he was incredibly wasteful. But, I think the fact that his expected points against his points, and Son is only 3 points off him at 3 million less, shows to me there are alternatives. I suppose the whole point of this now is which ones are disposable. If you're dead set on bringing in Salah.
So for me, having looked at this data earlier today, there are a few things that really, really stood out, and I think the first one is how good Bruno Fernandez has been since he's joined. I think everyone's been looking for him to slow down, but when you watch him, he is Man United. That everything exactly. that they're involved that happens on the pitch, he's driving. We know for a fact they get a lot of penalties. Whether they should or not is a different question, but they do get a lot of penalties. Dominate set pieces. I think if you look at it, he's got 28 FPL returns, so goals and assists in 24 matches. That is just phenomenal. He's got 197 points in 24 matches. That it's just absolutely, but he's kept up that momentum. I think watching him last night doesn't make a difference if Man United are crap. He is. So I think for me, he's the one that really stands out. The annoying thing is I don't own him at the moment. So the plan is let's just hope Man City put on a show and keep him quiet. But I think his stats are just that one alone in 197 points in 24 appearances is absolutely brilliant. He's basically saying 2/3 of the way through the season, he's pretty much hit 200 points. So, be on track for matching or beating Salah's best. I think Salah's very consistent and he's a great captaincy option, particularly at home. And I think he's reliable. And that probably out of all of the players, he's the one player that I would trust given the armband at home. So I think you get that with Salah, the reliability and the fact that, it's very rare he blanks at home. He doesn't. So for me, I do like Salah for that reason. There is a trust factor there, and it similar to Bruno in a way. Sometimes even when he's not having a great game, he'll grind points out of nothing. I've seen, so I like, like for example, the West Ham games where he's had a couple of penalties. It doesn't matter. He just has that ability to get FPL points. I think Bruno, I think one point to just add, if you actually look at all of these players, all five of them, they're pretty much either averaging an FPL return, so a goal or assist, every game over the 20 to 24 matches that they've played. So that is just absolutely incredible consistency. I think De Bruyne at the moment, the way he's playing, and I think what's happened is City haven't been able to replace David Silva, which is a great thing for FPL, because what that's meant is De Bruyne has gone into a number 10 position, and he's got much more of a goal threat than he had last season. If you look to, particularly against like to Fulham and Burnley, he was unlucky not to score in open play in both of those matches. And I think the plan is get him in the pockets in the number 10 position and let him make something happen. Because they haven't got that natural replacement for David Silva. So that makes him a better option. And I think with captaincy and the fact he's been rested again tonight, he's a great captain option with some of the home games they've got coming up. I don't think City can afford to slip up in the league, given that they're a few points behind and there's a lot of teams competing. So I think De Bruyne will start every match. Now, he might come off after 60, 70 minutes, but I think he will start every league match over the Christmas period, personally. I think that there's matches to rest him. I think the League Cup's just before Christmas. I think he'll get rested in that. So I think De Bruyne is brilliant. I think the other thing that really interested me, and when you look at the FPL points, this season Kane has got 5 more attacking returns than Son, but Son's got more points and cheaper. That says to me Son is a better option than Kane. And I think they're pretty much the only advantage that Kane has over Son is that he's a forward, and it gives you that extra flexibility in the forward spots to bring in the Aguero, Werner, Jesus, etc., Vardy. So I think that's the advantage that he has. But for Son's price, I just echo what you said. He's just so consistent, and it doesn't matter. Spurs don't need loads and loads of chances. They're so good on the counter attack. So you were mentioning at the start about the Arsenal match and stats not mattering. The big factor in that was the space when they attacked, and you give Son that sort of space. I mean, we're big advocates of Son, and I know you actually called it in terms of the counter attacking that you thought Son would do well against City and Chelsea and Arsenal. So you called that absolutely spot on. But his finishing is something else. I think we called him the best finisher in the league at a few pods back. But he just, his goal the weekend was absolutely brilliant. And he's somebody to back that up. You look at him versus his XG, he always significantly overperforms it, but he doesn't have penalties in his locker either, which makes it even better. Or he's not putting in free kicks from 30 yards. So for me, I've talked quite a bit here, but my conclusion is that I want to get to Bruno, KDB, Salah, and who have I missed? Bruno, KDB, Salah, and
Son.
Fernandez.
Oh, and Son it is, I think you mean.
Yeah, say Son. Yeah. I'll have Bruno twice, actually, if that's all right.
He's that good. He's that good.
He can be an advantage over people if I got him twice. But yeah, so I want that. And I can actually have that power midfield and then a cheap strike force, and I can make the move in game week 13 with 2 free transfers. It means having Watkins over Grealish, which I'm comfortable with. So that's what I want to get to, because I look at it. I prefer captain and a midfielder. I trust Salah, and actually, I've had 8 games I've had a third of the season not owning him. I much prefer owning him. It's life's a lot easier and a lot more. So I think the way that I like it at the moment is because, and also as well, what I would have said is I would have not bought in Fernandez if I wasn't going to captain him. But I actually think there's some good games to captain him. I think if you are worried about De Bruyne having a rest when in game week 13, when is it West Brom that City play? I don't think he will, but it's possible. Bruno plays Sheffield United away. We all know about Bruno's away record. So I think that's a good captaincy option. He's got Leeds at home the following week. So again, if you didn't want to captain Salah away at Palace, which I think could be, I think I'd prefer Bruno at home to Leeds and Salah away to Palace personally. I think De Bruyne's got Southampton. So I actually think there's fixtures you can captain De Bruyne in there as well. So I'm quite happy going with the power midfield. I think a lot depends on your team setup and your appetite to risk, and also which players you personally think are going to get the most points?
A couple of points. So playing devil's advocate, you said you like, captaining Salah at home, which
Yeah.
I completely agree with. Right, he's an absolute animal at home. He's scary, which is why I picked up the West Brom game in game week 15. But why now of these next three? They're away to Fulham. Okay, it is a good fixture, right? They're then home to Spurs, which you're not going to captain him at home to Spurs because Spurs, have are much improved at the back and will very, very likely play for a 0-0, you would guess. And then they're away to Palace as well. So it's not till game week 15, that you have that plum home tie against West Brom. So why have you brought him in this early? I suppose if you not only like him for the home games, but if you think he's the best option for those, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I saw it. So the reason I brought him in is I saw it as an opportunity to do something different, to get on Salah when he had lower ownership. He had Wolves at home, which I thought was a good fixture.
Yeah.
I was always captaining De Bruyne, so that wasn't going to be a factor in that particular game week. I thought his ownership would soar. I thought his price would soar. I thought it's and I thought with the increase in penalties, I thought, well, I quite fancy owning him. And I thought at the time with Bruno, everyone had gone to Bruno. So I thought for me, I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I would get, like you talked about, getting ahead of the curve. Most people look to bring Salah in this week. So, and I think it made the most sense to me because I think I was looking at him to captain him for the Fulham game. So what I'm looking at the moment, if I go with what I'm planning, is I would captain Salah versus Fulham. Probably KDB versus West Brom, although that if the Man United game's quite intense, I might go for Bruno because they play a bit later, I think, on the Thursday, and I think Sheffield United have been very, very allowing, but it'll be Bruno or KDB. I've then got a choice between Salah against Palace or Bruno at home to Leeds. And I think I don't like making these decisions too far in advance. And then Salah at home to West Brom, I think would be. Is West Brom or Newcastle? Is West Brom, isn't it?
It's
City play
West
Newcastle.
Brom and then away to Newcastle the week after.
So I think I'm using him enough as captaincy, so I'm comfortable with that. But I also think by having Bruno, KDB, and Salah, I've got the option to look at form, to look at who's been rested. I haven't got to keep transferring in and out. So I think for me, and I know our teams are set up very differently, so I wouldn't advise it for everybody. I think it was the right decision to bring him in. Mm-hmm. And I think by game week 13, when I brought Bruno in, I think I'll be nicely set up until a wild card.
Yes, because you're wild card, aren't you, in 16? And that's the thing for me is I've used mine already, so I'm thinking slightly sort of differently. And now we've had the West Ham West Brom double game week confirmed in game week 19 as well. I'll be looking to that. Let's just jump in the chat. There's a lot of let's say not a lot of love for Son because of his stats. Guys, he's the highest point scorer in the whole game. He scored 100 points in 11 game weeks. What more do you want? He's played all the different kinds of teams. He's played the easier teams. He's played the premium teams. Son at his price over a season, right? You don't want to be wasting transfers, bringing players in and out, right? Son for me, season keeper. I got him cheap. He's a little bit more than was he, kind of 9.5. But I can't understand that people say Spurs have been lucky. This game is not just about stats. Stats only tell a story, as Spurs and Arsenal said, told on the weekend where it played out perfectly, where they had 2 attacks, they scored the 2 goals, they won 2-0, and they're top of the league because of it. Whereas the actual game stats would tell you differently. CFC Fabiano isn't bringing Salah in. Even if he starts, I don't see him hauling. Jeremiah Kremin says Alexander-Arnold and Robertson double up for Liverpool's easy games is the differential. I've got Robertson. Adam, you haven't got a Liverpool defender, I'm assuming.
No, I haven't.
No, so we'll talk about that later because
I'm not sweating. I'm not too worried about it, to be honest. I think Liverpool have. I think they've looked like conceding in most matches, so I'm not too worried about that. You can't have everyone as well.
I'll touch on that after because that is another reason, kind of why I'm going down a non-Salah route. Because I've got a really good defence and bench, but yeah, we'll touch on that. Robert Glasser, I know Son is clinical, but he's had like one shot in the box over the last 3 game weeks. Doesn't matter, mate. He pops him in from 25 yards like he did last weekend. Don't worry about it, Rob. Jeremiah, you'll never captain Son, and he won't score well in the next few. Agree to disagree there. I think I think you could captain Son this weekend, and on game week 16 onwards when they're home to Fulham, he's definitely a captaincy option. Then
I think just on Son,
yeah,
my reason for keeping him is a little bit different as well. And is that I bought him fairly cheap, and with wild carding in game week 15 or 16, I like Spurs fixtures from about that point onwards. So I think he's such good value. He's just fine. He's just fine to hold. I don't think you need to captain him at that price. So no, I'm happy with Son. And
we've had a question just around the Fantasy Football Hub app. Is it free? It is absolutely free. You can download it from any of the app stores for absolutely free. Enjoy it. We use it every single day to help us make all our FPL decisions. Just to kind of finish off then, Adam, I suppose, on this, a very great discussion around this because, we think very differently about lots of things, but I also find as well that we tend to agree with each other, around the bigger point, if that makes sense, that, Salah's not essential. You can't have everyone. It's, it's around specific players and stuff. So bench and defense. So you're talking about potentially having, what was it, Salah, Fernandez, De Bruyne, and Son. How are you going to have a bench, and what kind of defense are you going to have? Because if you start talking about Lamptey and hoping Mitchell starts and all this, then I'm not going to be agreeing with you.
No. So I think what it'll enable me to do is to have if I do go this route, I'll have a front 7 of those 4 midfielders, and then Watkins, Bamford, and Calvert-Lewin. I've got I'd have $1 million in the bank to upgrade my defence. I've got Chilwell, and then it's literally 4.5. So the player I'd look to bring in would be Eric Dyer. I really like Spurs from a defensive point of view. For $5 million, I think he's great. If I might also, and we touch and go. The other player I really like is Reece James, and I think what you were saying about Liverpool defence, I get it, but I think you've got Reece James and Chilwell and Zuma are the Liverpool defence of 2 seasons ago. So I think you're paying too much for Liverpool defenders, and you can look at the opposite positions and all of that. But the problem with that is if you want a squad with the value over replacement position, that causes you issues having 7 million defenders. So for me at the moment, well, if you look at it, you could just because I know you're not going to agree with this, but you could have Grealish and a 4.5 million defender that you could bring in on the bench, or you could have Robertson and a 4.5 million midfielder. I think I'd prefer the first option. And I think James and Chilwell could easily, could outscore the. And I think you could throw. I think City will keep a lot of clean sheets. So I think Diaz is a great option. I just think there's better options than. I'm not necessarily saying points wise, but definitely value wise, so you can put the funds further forward.
I think that Diaz is on the verge of a mega haul. He's, he scored a couple in the in the last international break. He missed one. He missed an easy header against Spurs. He missed one which was nearly over the line in the Champions League last week. I think he's on for a 15-pointer at least soon. But
I think so. And I don't think he'll get rotated too much.
No.
Someone's just put in the chat. So Anthony G's just asked about James getting rotated. Yeah, he will miss a game. I think he will get rotated for a game. But for me, if he's playing 8 or 9 out of 10, I think he's worth it. I think this one depends on your wild card situation. So if we get into game week 13 and he hasn't had a rest and you're bringing him in for 3 games, you might be a little bit more cautious with that move. And it might make sense to go for Zuma instead, actually, because I think he'll play most of the minutes. And you tend to find the centre-backs do for consistency. If it's a longer-term move, I would say that I don't think there are many better defenders than Reece James at the moment. I mean, watching the weekend, his crossing is absolutely
unbelievable, isn't it? Brilliant. It is.
And I think if Chelsea continue to play Giroud, I can't see a reason why he won't start the majority of games at the moment versus what he offers compared to Abraham. I think Reece James is Trent of a couple of years ago. They've got the defence. He's got the attacking output. He has the odd set piece. He's in the box sometimes for corners. He's great assist potential in open play. So he's one player that I don't own that I'm a little bit envious of if anybody owns him.
I would also say with Ziyech out now for a couple of weeks as well, Reece James at the start of the season was taking a lot of corners and free kicks before Ziyech started as well, so he should be on a few for the next few weeks as well.
I've got to mention this. So we had a laugh earlier at one of the hub comments because apparently there's some annoying guy that's really biased towards Villa, so Fergie needs to calm down on that. But Oliver Ashton's just put in the chat, take a shot of vodka every time Adam mentions Jack Grealish.
Steaming.
So yeah, decent drinking game that would. I do like that. Yeah, I'll try and tone down the Grealish love, but yeah, he's leaving my team potentially next week. So,
I've just got to read out one of the comments off Jones Bloke 79. I had a mail last week, took out Son, Kane, Souch, so I shouldn't laugh, and Robertson for Lamp, D, Mahrez, Bruno, and Cavani. Cavani for a minus. For a -8.
Poor guy.
It worked out. It cost him. It worked out. It cost him 29 points. Now licking my wounds, I would be as well. That is really, really bad luck. That's well, it's just one of those. We've all done it. Don't worry. I took out Son and Kane a few years ago in a double game week. They were playing Stoke on a Monday night. And Spurs only had the one game. I think they were away to Stoke, and sorry, Ali and Kane, and Ali scored 2 and Kane scored 2. I remember that. And my normal team would have scored about 85, and my free hit or whatever it was scored about 41. But we've all done it, absolutely. Okay, so with all that chat, moving on to our team. So, Adam, I've got your team up now on screen. Could you read it out for our podcast listeners?
Yeah, of course I can. Pretty happy with my team this week. So I've got McCarthy in goal. I've got Ayling, who I know starting. So that's good. Although at centre-back, so might have to consider whether I play him or Target. I've got Ayling, Chilwell and Justin. And then in midfield, I've got Salah, who will be captain, De Bruyne, Grealish and Son, and then up front Vardy, Calvert-Lewin and Bamford. So plan is to save a transfer, and I think if I do anything else, it's overthinking it. I think my team looks okay for this week, which always unnerves me. Because when I go in feeling slightly when you go in feeling slightly confident, I think I posted last week, funny enough, that I'm going to have a crap week. I'm playing Basuma, who has a good week, playing Basuma. And I actually had one of my best weeks of the season, so I think maybe I'm a bit apprehensive about this week.
I've noticed you've.
I think that a lot could go wrong, but at least I'll have 2 free transfers going into game week 13. Will be well. Is there anything you'd do with my team? Are there any changes that you'd make?
I noticed you've hidden your bench. I don't know why you haven't put your bench on. Is that because it's so bad?
My bench is my bench is brilliant. I've got Basuma, the 1 point legend.
I've got Basuma.
The thing that annoyed me most about Basuma, and I had 3 players that did this. They got yellow cards in the last minute. So, Jamie Vardy tackling it's always a frustration of mine when it's great when you score a last minute winner, but for FPL players, when the player goes and gets a yellow card, it just takes off that little bit of shine. They need to have some consideration. I much prefer a muted celebration. And, so that was it. And then Basuma got booked and McCarthy got booked all in the last minute. So I've got Basuma, Target, and Ferguson, who's non-playing. So I've got, it's not great, but Target and Basuma should play. So it'll get me something at least.
I would be tempted to move Calvert-Lewin on. I don't know. I just, he's his last 3 fixtures were really, really nice. He did well. So he got a 13-pointer, a 2-pointer, and a 6-pointer, whatever it was. So you got your points out of him for that run, but their fixtures the next few are not good. And I think there are potentially 2 good options there. Maybe you could jump on. I'm looking at Ings. Or look at my team now. I'm looking at Danny Ings.
Well, I think I can't afford Ings. I can't bring in Watkins because I'm blocked out of Villa. So there aren't many players that I could move into. And I think with Calvert-Lewin, the way that I see it is I think even though the fixtures are tough, I still think Everton will score goals. Even if they're averaging a goal a game. And the chances of Calvert-Lewin, because of his positioning, being involved are fairly high. I bought him at 7 million, so I'd lose a lot in team value. He got 3 big chances versus Burnley.
Yeah.
So he could have scored. And if you actually look at his goals versus Burnley, versus Fulham, they're all tap-ins from 2 yards. They're the perfect goals you want for your FPL strikers. So I'm happy that people are selling Calvert-Lewin because I think for his price, he's going to be involved in a high proportion of Everton's goals. Now, I don't think Everton will be free scoring, but I don't know what people are expecting to happen. And actually, I think the only tough fixture really is the Chelsea game. I think after that, if they got Arsenal, Sheffield United,
Leicester in between that as well, and then Man City.
They're not.
No,
I'll be on wildcard territory, so he might be gone by the Man City game. But I'm thinking until at least that point.
I think there's better upside with Ings, and I also think so. Gavinho. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say I can't afford Ings, though, so I do agree. I do like Ings, but
what about Callum Wilson? Because I think that is a great shout, and that will also free up your million to be able to upgrade to get in Reece James potentially either this week or next week.
Yeah, do you know what? It's a really good shout. There's 2 problems with that. Number one, Newcastle. I think everything they've been through, we just don't know how they'll react. And I think, although they've got good fixtures, they've had so much disruption. We don't know which players were impacted. I just think they're best to stay away from.
Fair enough.
And I think somebody mentioned it in another podcast. I'd have to watch Newcastle games. I don't want to be watching Newcastle West Brom the weekend. I've got better things to do than that. At least watching Everton Chelsea is a bit. But I think there's certain teams, Newcastle are one, Burnley are another. Just watching them, and then they'll have the odd attack. And yes, Wilson will be involved. But I'm sorry, Newcastle fans. It's probably not fair. I might consider him around double game week territory, and I possibly would have considered him if it wasn't for everything that had happened with COVID. But I just think there's an element of risk there that it's just better to stay away. And actually, I think for me, it's important to have 2 free transfers because I'm going to want to bring Bruno in. And I can't do it in one move unless I lose Salah or De Bruyne.
I think there's more upside, personally. I think that, the Calvert-Lewin, he scored a lot of points. He's a really good option. He's not very good on bonus either, Calvert-Lewin, as it showed again last week. So I think you could hop off, I don't know what his ownership is now, absolutely ridiculous. Something like, was it 60% his ownership? Something like that.
Yeah.
And let everyone else have his 2 points or his 6-pointer. Whereas Wilson could be getting,
I think I need to apologise to FPL Geordie. He's always in the chat every week.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And I've maybe been a bit unfair on Newcastle. So.
No, I think they'll do okay. I do. It's just, as you say, it's Newcastle. It's Wilson or nothing with Newcastle, isn't it? Whereas with Everton, they just score more goals and a better attacking team.
The biggest reason that Calvert-Lewin struggles on bonus, by the way, is he misses or he gets a lot of big chances. And I think he missed 2 the weekend, and that penalises you quite a bit. I think it's 3 BPS per big chance miss, so he lost 6 straight away just from that. So as long as he's getting the big chances, but what it does mean is that they've got more chance of a potential haul. So if they keep getting the chances, so I'm not losing Calvert-Lewin. I can see why people are, but I don't think there are many better options, and I think Everton, even if they tick along, he's going to be involved. So.
That's fair enough.
And I think because I got him at 7 million, it makes him a little bit more better value for me than it probably is for others that maybe bought him in at 7.5, 8 million. So
yeah, that makes sense. I just want
to. Anyway, before we go to your team, I think everyone is really eager to know. You've been so loyal to Foden. I think everyone wants to see you continue being loyal to Foden. I think there were a lot of people wanting you to captain him last week. Is he staying in your team this week? That's what everyone wants to know.
Well, I've got a 50-50, so I'll touch it now. I just quickly want to apologise to Jones Bloke 79. Thankfully, assuming 79 is his year, he's roughly my age. We're probably a bit old in the tooth to take things personally, but apologies for that laugh. I wouldn't be very good on the rough with the smooth, would I? Can you imagine every time something like that happened, and I'm in
I think
tears.
we need, exactly. I think we need to drop in a horror show each week. See if Fergie can keep a straight face.
Yeah, agree. So I've got my team now on screen, so we'll talk about Foden now. So this is my team for this coming week without transfers used yet. So I've got Martinez in goal, so I held him last week, played with 10. Got a back three of Robertson, Chilwell, and Reece James. So that's my back three, Adam. That's the things you have not of that's one of the upsides of not having Salah. I've got a midfield four at the moment of Bruno Fernandez, Heung-min Son, Kevin De Bruyne, and Diogo Jota, who I really like, and I think he's got the potential to be kind of Mahrez-esque, Kane-esque of previous years when they get in really cheap and they just smash in loads of points. Currently got a front three of Bamford, Watkins, and Calvert-Lewin, and my bench is Creswell, Foden, and Mitchell. So obviously Mitchell is the weak link there on the bench. So I do have 2 free transfers, and I've got a couple of options. So I think I'm fairly set now. The only way I'd bring in Salah now is if we had news pre-deadline that either De Bruyne, Son, or Bruno were out for a couple of weeks or out for a while. That's the only way I would bring in Salah. I'm not bringing him in. I made a decision, and this 90 minutes earlier has made it even easier for me in terms of the decision there. So with my 2 free transfers, I do like the look of Ings. So the main difference for me with Ings to Calvert-Lewin, Ings is the opposite. So Ings is so clinical that he's fantastic on bonus. If Ings scores, he tends to get 9 points. They are playing Sheffield United this weekend. Their fixtures, are a bit mixed, but to me, he is an elite striker. And actually, if you look at his points for this season per appearance against Salah, he's only just behind him. Obviously, he's missed a few now because of his injury, all right? But he was only kind of, I had a quick look earlier. He's like, 7 or 8 points behind Salah, average points per appearance, right? So yeah. I think Ings at 8.3 million is a fantastic option. I really, really do. And he's got the fixture this week to really take advantage.
Yeah.
I'm a bit short.
Do you think? Are you concerned that he might have his minutes managed and he could start on the bench?
No, I don't.
Well, maybe even if it's not this week, assume so Southampton will have 3 matches in a week. He's just come back from a fairly serious injury. Is there a chance that he could miss one of those games? I know you could say that for anyone, but I would think, given how critical he is, surely they will be a little bit careful with him. I mean, he looked great. I'm not disputing
even if
that.
he does, right? I don't really mind, because 1, he's 8.3, he's not 12.3, and 2, I'll have a really good bench. So I'll be bringing someone like Creswell off the bench.
I think no, you won't, because he'll come on for a 1-pointer.
I don't think
he's in your bench that
easy. Okay, no, I will agree there. But as you proved last Monday night, he's on penalties, which as we know this season, we've said it time and time again. You don't have to play well to be on penalties. But I think Ings a fantastic option and a great price as well.
So is Ings 100% coming in for you,
Well,
based on what we know today?
well, it's either, right. So I'm a bit
Go on
short
then.
on cash for Calvert-Lewin straight to wings. I'm 0.2 short. So what I would have to do then is take out Foden for
What?
Soucek. Now this was my plan before Soucek scored on the weekend. I think Soucek is a great option. I think West Ham have got good fixtures, and they've also got the double game confirmed in game week
Yeah.
19 as well. So I would actually have then Creswell and Soucek. So and if you think of a typical West Ham goal or attack, Creswell free kick on corner onto Soucek's head is the dream, right? So I'll have them both in place for that. I'd look to get Antonio in later as well. So that is one option, and I'm happy with that. And I've also then got $1 million in the bank to kind of play around with. My other one, as mentioned in the chat, would be to do Calvert-Lewin straight down to Wilson, which I do agree with you. I think if Ings had become so apparent, 5% owned as well, Ings, right? Then I would maybe have gone to Wilson, which means I could have kept Foden, because I do think that Foden will play midweek at home to West Brom, which obviously a really good fixture for him. But as much as I've been an advocate of Foden all season, I'm just so disappointed. And Pep is full of it, right? Because he keeps saying, "Oh, I don't rotate. I don't rotate." Look at his team this evening. It's a completely rotated team. He will play.
It's no Bielsa, is he?
It's not.
Press conference.
He will play his strongest team, on Saturday against Man United. He will play, a very strong team, I'm sure, against West Brom. But I would think that Foden would get a lot of minutes against West Brom, which could be a good.
Have you got one transfer this week?
Two.
Has you got 2 free transfers this week?
So this is why I'm considering the Ings and Soucek. It gives me a lovely, really nicely rounded team. I still have Mitchell. And in terms of captaincy, this is the interesting one. So it says there De Bruyne. I think De Bruyne is a good captaincy option this weekend. United look awful at the back. Maguire looks dreadful. Wan-Bissaka had a nightmare the other night against Leipzig. De Gea's confidence seems to have completely gone. And Lindelof, he's not looking that good either. Or has he ever looked that good? And that left back spot as well is a mess. They couldn't clear any crosses away on Wednesday against Leipzig either. They have played midweek. De Bruyne will have had a complete rest as well. So I think De Bruyne is a decent armband option. If I did bring in Ings, I would be tempted to captain Ings. So he's the second highest percent. So looking at FPL, Salah's odds to score this weekend. Salah is top. So odds to score. It's either odds to score or odds to return. Salah is top, right? Ings is second. And if Ings gets a goal against Sheffield United, which you would imagine he would, that would be an 18-point captain. If Salah gets a goal away to Fulham, it will likely be a 16-point captain.
So you run the captaincy options. So you've got De Bruyne, Son.
De Bruyne, Son,
Fernandez probably wouldn't.
And Ings. So I think, I'm not sure just bringing in Ings is probably enough. It's one of those moves, right? So I've written my article for the Hub this week, and I've written in it, it's either one of those genius moves or those moves you look like a complete and utter idiot when Ings does nothing and Salah pops a couple of goals in. But
it's a tough one. I honestly, I'm not sure what I'd do in your situation. I think that's a really, really tough one.
It is.
I think you're making the right decision for your team and your setup to stick without Salah. So I think that. But there's been very few game weeks. It seems like there's been a few recently where there hasn't really been a standout captaincy option. Even last week, it was still quite partisan because some went with Bruno, some went with Kane. Whereas I feel this week, there's only one captaincy option that people are talking about, and that's Salah. And it seems a huge gamble to go away from him. But where there's a gamble, as I always say, there's an opportunity. And it could be an absolute, if Salah gets, say, a 6-pointer or 7-pointer, and your captaincy comes in, then happy days. I'd be tempted on De Bruyne, I think.
Yeah, I think that bringing in Ings alone is probably a decent move. I'm not sure, and it's because of the bonus points. This is it with Ings. He always tends to return, and he always tends to get really good bonus points. Even if he gets a goal, he's very likely to get kind of 8 or 9 points.
Yeah, agreed. I think De Bruyne's fixture proof, and I think the best example recently is the Spurs game. So we didn't get a return in that game, but if you look and watch the game back, he pretty much was unlucky not to score. He hit Jesus, didn't he? He blocked his goal-bound shot, which has been going in, and he set up a couple of decent big chances, which on another day could have gone in. And Spurs were the ultimate defensive team. I think if you looked at what he did in some of the away tougher games last year, I think I would go for De Bruyne. And particularly as he's been rested again, and I think his form over the last two or three has been brilliant. So that's what I would go with. But you've got a dilemma there, a real big one. But I think
they're much of a muchness. Personally, I think that people put too much emphasis on captaincy. I personally do, because unless someone goes and scores a 20-pointer. Which obviously Salah did in game week 1, right? But that was home against Leeds. Unless someone scores a 20-pointer, I do think that you can claw anything back. A 9-pointer, 11-pointer, which is generally the norm, right? I do think you can claw it back with the rest of your team if your team's in really good shape. But that's just a personal opinion.
I disagree with you.
Yeah,
this is the one weakness I think I've consistently had in my game, and definitely last season it probably stopped me from getting the top 10Ks, making bad captaincy picks. And so I think it's very rare if you nail the captain, and I'm talking about double-digit return here. It's pretty hard to get a red arrow unless it is the most obvious captain of all time and 99% of the game captain him.
Exactly.
In which case it makes it redundant. I think because of the ownership of and how it's split this year and the high Spurs ownership, I think the captain will still be split this week, although majority will probably go Salah. So I think nailing the captain is such a key part. But I think it's the hardest part as well.
I think nailing a captain return, but I don't think you have to have the highest scoring player, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
In terms of like Salah at 12.3, if he scores a 13-pointer, I don't mind having Ings captain at 9 points because of the extra 4 million that puts into my team elsewhere, which gets extra points elsewhere, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. I think for me, getting the captaincy right is so important. But the reason it's really tough is a lot of our transfers, we make decisions maybe over a minimum of 4 or 5 game weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So you've got enough time for them to come good. You're using the fixtures more over, a good spell of fixtures. A good, you can get rid of the variance as well. So if they blank in 1 week, they might overscore their XG the following week, whatever it would be. When you're going for 1 game week, it's incredibly tough because you've got the variance factor or luck or whatever you want to say. And I think we have to factor in the poor level of refereeing as well.
Well, yeah.
So I don't even think it's VAR. It's the refereeing level is atrocious.
That penalty at Brighton on Monday night was one of the most unbelievable things I've ever seen. It
was. I think. But I think you factor that in. I think if you look at so I think the variance has a huge play, and so there is a lot of looking in captaincy in terms of getting the biggest haul. And I'm not saying it's a complete skill in choosing captaincy, but what I am saying is that it has such a big bearing on whether you have a good week or a bad week. Because if you get a 2-point, 4-point return from your captain, you've got a lot of making up to do from your other players. You can get green arrows without a captain return, but it's a lot easier when you get a nice 14-pointer doubled up, isn't it? So I think it's key. And I think what I'm trying to do now, I messed up. The week I really messed up was when I captained Grealish. And I don't think it's necessarily, I think there was a little bit of bad luck in that, in the fact that Barkley got injured in the first minute, 'cause it impacted the game. But there was a really obvious
It was.
captain that week.
It was Bruno home to West Brom, wasn't it?
It's easy to look back now and say, but it was such an obvious captain. And I think a lot of people had to get out of jail card because they had Salah, who was out with COVID. So it was a really easy move. But I could have brought Bruno in, and I could have took that extra hit, and I could have brought him in for Rashford. It was doable, and captained him, but I didn't do it. So I think for me, captaincy is really, really important. And I'm not saying always have the obvious captain, but I think it's quite good to have the person that you genuinely think will score the most in that game week.
Yeah, no, I do, but not to the detriment of the rest of your team. But this is our difference in style.
Yeah, it is. I think long term, if you're going to captain Salah, I know you haven't got a wild card, but if you looked at the fixtures and you could make a justification over the next 8 fixtures, you would captain him 3 or 4 times. I think then you would have to go for it. But there are other options, of course.
And don't get me wrong, right? I don't want anyone to think that I don't think Salah is a fantastic option, because I think maybe that's what is coming across. If I could get to Salah easily enough, I would, but I can't. So I think that, or I can't without destroying my team.
What I love the most is that Salah's defence is in my hands on the podcast. Particularly as most people probably think of me being in Team Mane, but I think I must admit I'm looking forward to having Salah again captain. It's been too long. So.
I've had a comment off Jappe778. Fergie, you put too much emphasis on value. I do put emphasis on value. I personally don't think I put too much emphasis on value. I think value is probably, for me, the most important thing in fantasy football, personally. But that's your opinion. And Riyadh has been on to us. I think he obviously missed the start. Riaz Davids. Do we think Salah is going to start after 90 minutes? I think we both agreed that we don't know. He probably will, and if you've got him, captain him. I think it's probably.
Yeah, for those that missed it, I'm
just right at the start.
I've got Salah last week.
Exactly.
I'm definitely going to be captaining him. I'm not overthinking it.
And he probably will start, right?
Probably will. I think he'll start. I don't think there's any logic in not starting Salah, and I think even with Klopp starting Salah tonight, surely the Fulham game's more important.
Nice.
So
moving on, very aptly, as we just talked about captaincy for the last 5 or 10 minutes, but we're now going to look at the best game week 12.
Oh, it's getting a long chat, isn't it?
I know, since we've just actually done it. But we put out a Twitter poll, a Fantasy Football Hub. We put in Salah, Kane, De Bruyne and Vardy. There are some other options as well, I think. Salah finished with 76.7% of the poll, as you would expect. Kane came back with 11%. Vardy, home to Brighton. We haven't even mentioned Vardy. Home to Brighton is a great fixture for Vardy, 7.2%. And De Bruyne, only 5.1%. I would chuck in Heung-min Son, as we've mentioned, especially away from home potential on the break. I think he'd be really good. And I would chuck in Danny Ings. And it's not just a gut feel, right? So according to FPL Salah's odds, he is second out of everyone. So according to the odds, he is more likely to return this weekend than De Bruyne, Vardy, Kane, Son, all these players, and he's 5% owned as well, which is not a sole factor, but it is a factor as well. So, but in terms of the best option, right? Salah for me is the best option. I don't have him. I expect him to do okay. I expect him to score a goal, maybe even get a goal and assist, wherever else. But I don't think that is the be all and end all. I don't want to destroy my team. In terms of second, I think Kane will have a good game. So, we mentioned this a few weeks ago that I think Son scores better and, he gets more space against better teams. I can't see Palace coming out and being expansive. I think Spurs will press them, which means Kane is playing higher up the pitch. So I think Kane is a really good shout. I think Vardy against Brighton, even though Vardy, and Leicester like to play on the break, I still think he'll get something against quite a poor Brighton defence who don't tend to get hammered, but they tend to concede in every single game. And De Bruyne, as we mentioned as well, I think he's a really good option against Man United. So that's my quick summary, Adam. What are your final thoughts on captaincy?
I think breaking down the games, I think a lot of people are looking at Liverpool Fulham. It'll be interesting that match to see, will Liverpool thrash Fulham? I think I've actually been quite impressed with Fulham the last 3 or 4 matches, so I'm not sure they'll thrash them, but I think they'll win comfortably. Maybe a 2-0. I think you're looking at Salah, but again, just from what we said at the start, I think Mane, I'd be more confident if we're betting on a single game, which we are talking about. I think Mane is potentially a better option because if we're looking at probability, you would say you're close to 100% that Mane is going to start. So that gives him an edge over Salah straight away. We're probably more confident that he's going to play 90 minutes than Salah. So I think Mane is a better captaincy option. So in that, I think we've got the most certainty that he will play and start. And I think with Mane, I think he's due a goal. And I know that statistically that is you can get pulled up on those sort of comments, but I do feel that he's had a bit of a goal drought in the Premier League, hasn't he? So I think I can see Mane doing quite well in that game. I think outside of that game, I think Everton have conceded the most big chances or joint most big chances over the last 4. So I think you could look at Giroud or Timo Werner potentially. I think Werner will get a lot of space and a lot of joy in that game. And I think whether you say he's been unlucky or it's been poor finishing, I mean, I think,
he's there and thereabouts, which is the big thing.
That one from the Giroud header. Amazingly, Understat had an XG of 0.88 or 0.89. I mean, I don't know the other 11% who have missed them in the future, but that was, it's pretty bad miss. But I like him. He's lively, and I think he was a brilliant assist for Pulisic's goal. He's playing on the periphery. So I think Werner is a really good option this week. You've mentioned De Bruyne. I think, for City, I think he's a decent option. What other games have we got? Vardy at home to Brighton. Yeah, I mean, I think Brighton might make it tough, but Vardy has got a haul in him, and I think So I think Vardy at home to Brighton possibly. Kane, I like your Kane shout. I think he scored in the last day of the season, didn't he, away at Palace? And I think it's more of a Kane than a Son game, that one.
I agree with that one. No, I completely agree. I think that Spurs will press, which means that Kane will be in the box, having a lot of shots.
Yeah,
always a chance of a penalty.
I think it's an interesting game for Spurs because of the games they've just gone through and the patch that they've gone through and the game they've got coming up on Wednesday against Liverpool. It's the sort of odd one out, really, in terms of style of play. So it'll be interesting because they've gone from having that, fairly low block to, at times playing a back 6 and hitting teams on the counter. So it'll be interesting to see, can they go back to the way of breaking teams down? Obviously, they're more than capable. They've got enough quality, but, we might see the likes of Bale coming in and doing something in that game. So that'd be interesting. But yeah, for me, I think it's hard to look past Liverpool, I think, this week for captaincy, personally.
No, I agree with that. I would just say, there's a comment of Manamino, DCL is a keeper. Look at Everton's front line, he's the best finisher, etc., etc. I completely agree. But I go back to it and I say this on most podcasts, fantasy football is about points. It's not about who the best player is. It's all about points. And I personally think that unless you bought him, right at the start of 7 million, as you did, Adam, I spent a lot more and I got him in Gameweek 9 or wherever else. I think there will be much better value players in the coming weeks than Calvert-Lewin, personally.
I think the big issue with Calvert-Lewin is the service from the fullbacks isn't going to be there. No, and I think particularly Luca Dean, that does cause a bit of an issue. So he's going to be reliant on Richarlison. Yeah. And Richarlison's brilliant. I really like him as a player. And I think I think even from set pieces, Calvert-Lewin is such a threat with the delivery of James. So I personally think he's worth keeping. I think it's overthinking selling him because I just don't think there are many
think
better
the opposite.
options.
I think there's an opportunity to jump off him at the right time and then optimise a
I
better pick
don't
moving
think
forward.
there are many better.
Fair enough. No, it's fair.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. We'll revisit. And just to look at our Fantasy Football Hub prediction tool, unsurprisingly, Salah is down to score the most points in Game Week 12. Aubameyang, who keeps appearing, he keeps appearing in this, is down at 5.9 points. They're home to Burnley. I mean, if you can't score against Burnley, you've got a problem there. Mane is actually third, Kane is fourth, and Vardy is fifth. So that's what the prediction tool on Fantasy Football Hub says. Competition time. So we did say at the start, I tell you what we'll do this week. We will run 2 competitions. We will give away 2 of our wonderful, beautiful Fantasy Football Hub mugs. They are absolutely stunning, in association with at FPL Merch. We said at the start, guess the minute that Salah will be brought off or brought on, depending on what happens. Put it in the chat. We will give away 1 mug next week to the winner there. And secondly, we will also run who will be the top FPL point scorer in game week 12. So just going back to last week, the highest point scorer in game week 11 was actually Wilfred Zaha with 19 points. But there was no one in the chat that I saw that picked out Zaha. I did have a message off Twitter off someone to say that he had picked Zaha, but when I looked in the YouTube comments, I couldn't see anyone. So if you do, please let me know and I will take another look. But I couldn't actually find you in there. So 2 competitions this week for the Hub. The minute that Salah either gets subbed on or off, and who will be the top FPL point scorer in game week 12. To be eligible, please press the like button. We've only got 100 likes and we've got nearly 500 watching. So there's a fifth of the audience aren't enjoying the stream that they've all been on for the last hour and a half. Please press like, guys. It will be really useful. Make sure you subscribe in the bottom right hand corner of the screen and leave your picks in the comments. For that, we are selling these mugs as well. They are fantastic quality. There is other Hub merchandise as well in association with that FPL merch. There's a link in the description below. We're currently running a 20% off discount using coupon code FFHub20, while Fantasy Football Hub members can get 25% off. So finally, we're just going to have a quick look at the top of the at FFH_ Green Arrow mini league. In 10th place, the Holy Falafel, Noor Boujalea. Noor, you're at risk of moving out. You need to up your game next week. 9th is Lou Banks. 8th is Ben R. 7th is Zhao Pixata. 6th is Vladimir Velsiov. Apologies if I'm pronouncing these all wrong. I'm doing my best. 5th is Michael Helen. 4th is Ollie Rontana. 3rd, Will Hollin. 2nd is Tony Scarpenhead. So he's been top for a few weeks, and he actually messaged me to explain the pronunciation of his team name. So I've been calling it Bojen forever. It's Bayern forever. So there we are, Tony. Well done. But you have slipped a second this week. First place, the Lily White Knights, Martin Meltzer, who had a game week score of 75. He's on 782 points. And is currently sat at 571st position overall. So very well done to those who are in the top 10. You are having a fantastic season. Make sure you join the mini league at FFH_ Green Arrow. The mini league code is LV24ZG, and there will be a prize for first place. We will give away a Fantasy Football Hub goodie bag for first place, and you will get a guest appearance on this podcast, the first pre-season episode of next season. YouTube watchers can join using the auto join link in the description below. And that is a wrap from us. Well, I don't know what you, Adam, but after the evening of the Salah news and wherever else, and trying to come on here and trying to ad-lib a little bit because we had everything planned out, I'm absolutely exhausted. But really, really enjoyable chat. fantastic. There's so many options. I mean,
I don't think anyone's going to share their game week scores again after you absolutely destroyed. Forget the smooth. That's not happening here.
I don't think we should do a rough with the smooth with my game. No, absolutely not. Many thanks to everyone who has joined in the chat. We've had a fantastic audience this evening, both in terms of numbers and in terms of engagement. Thank you so much for all your support.
We got time for a quick fire Q&A if there's any.
We have crack on. Any final
put any questions in the chat?
Stick them in the chat.
Those people who've joined later. So
while I do my quick spiel,
I've got a few people have asked me about Jack Grealish being on penalties. So I think if he wants them, and this is key, he'll get them. But since I've been, I think probably the last 30 odd penalties we've had, he's only taken one of them, and there's been a lot of different penalty takers. He's even been behind Glenn Whelan in the queue. So for whatever reason, he's quite a selfless player, and he doesn't tend to dominate set pieces. He doesn't tend to, push himself forward to take penalties enough. I'd like to see him as our penalty taker, but I think that'll be purely down to Jack. So hopefully he will be taking our next penalty. If I was a betting man, I think it's likely in the sense that because Watkins has missed them, and I think people will look to him. So I hope he does, because he's in my team at the moment. So FPL Geordie, who finishes higher, Villa or Toon? That's easy, Villa. So what do you reckon, Fergie? Who finishes higher, Villa or Newcastle?
Villa having a storm, mate. As much as well, I'm a Spurs fan, so I'm riding on the crest of the wave that you were riding on a month or so back. But Villa are playing. They got a really, really good, solid team all round, and Newcastle a bit too reliant. I think Wilson's got a goal involvement for Newcastle of 83%. I think I saw that.
Yeah, I saw
earlier.
that.
That's absolutely insane. So
what I would say is, I thought, is it Joe Linton or what was it, Joel Linton, however you pronounce that? I thought he was excellent against Palace.
Yeah, he's good.
His best game for Newcastle, and it's good to see, because he's had quite a tough time with it.
But he needs Wilson as well, don't he? Because they had a goal, they had the goal and assist.
Completely. That wasn't necessarily from an FPL perspective. No. That was just more that I was pleased to see him offer something, and I think he, made a great contribution in that match.
Last question. We've had a couple of questions off Loza, and we had another one a bit further up as well about Lamptey. So I said a couple of months ago now, and I was laughed out of town when I said that Lamptey is a wonderful footballer, but I don't think he's a good fantasy football asset. And I was told I didn't know what I was talking about. I was full of rubbish. But Brighton haven't got a good defence. You don't pick defenders based on pure attacking returns alone. Their bread and butter is clean sheets. Brighton can't keep clean sheets. Fantastic player. I'm sure he'll have one game week this year where he knocks in a whatever it is, a 15-pointer or whatever. I'm sure he'll have one. But, he's been, in terms of an FPL asset, he's been pretty dire. The game is about points. Remember that, everyone. Okay, so, Adam, best of luck to you this weekend. I truly hope that Salah comes on in the 91st minute.
I'll take that if he scores a brace in the 92nd and 93rd. I think, you know what, I won't be alone with
you will not be alone. I think you're with 80% of the community, so you'll be fine. Where can people get hold of you?
On Twitter, Hopcroft13.
Okay, and my Twitter handle is @Fergie222. Follow me if you want really.
It's not @Fergie, is it? Because I think I've responded to one of your messages and ended up messaging the lead singer of the Black Eyed Peas. So having a go at her about Phil Foden.
Not just once, Adam. You've done it about 4 or 5 times over the week. So poor Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas.
Doesn't block me either. She's like, who the fuck's Phil Foden? She's like, she ain't got a clue, has she?
Well, she's not stupid enough to have Foden in her team, which is probably why she hasn't replied. She's thinking, Phil Foden, what are you talking about? Yeah, but Adam's been atting Fergie from the Black Eyed Peas the last few weeks. So, but she hasn't blocked me, as you say. So something good there. Okay, so this podcast video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel with the podcast version available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please press the like button and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Green Arrow. So make sure you follow. Any support on social media would also be very much appreciated. We did win an award, Adam. We won best newcomer podcast for 2019 in the Twitter Online FPL Podcast Awards. That was quite a nice bit of recognition there. Obviously Andy, who's not joining us at the moment, played a massive part in that as well. So thank you very much, Andy, for that. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football, all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, points prediction tools, and much more to join the tens of thousands of other fantasy managers and sign up to the hub to use all our amazing resources. Just click the top link in the description below. You will not regret it. We'll be back live next week on Monday evening. Obviously, because the deadline for Game Week 13 is Tuesday at 4:30, Adam and I will be back on Monday evening, and we will also be doing, so this won't be Adam, but it'll be myself, Rich Clark, and Paul McNulty. We will be doing FPL live on Wednesday evening at 8 o'clock, where we will be providing FPL commentary for all the 8 o'clock games, which includes Liverpool versus Spurs. So look forward to that. We had great fun doing them last season. We haven't been able to do them this season, obviously, because the games haven't been played simultaneously, but we'll be doing that next Wednesday right here on this channel. On Monday night, we will probably preview Game Weeks 13 and 14, obviously because of the turnaround of Game Weeks now is getting very, very quick. I'll stop yapping now. So we will see you then, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe all, and good night.